All right, everyone. It's Miami Wednesday night here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. And of course, it's a big a live stream of college football for 3 hours with Florida State, Miami, and Ohio State. But before anybody else was here, the U was here, Cam Underwood, myself, talking Miami football for a long, long time. So we appreciate you guys jumping on board and just don't be selfish and take this in yourself. Let people know out there, the family, the friends, the social media acquaintances, that we are here each and every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time with Miami Football Talk, with the season just about 50 some odd days away, Cam. Wow.
Yeah. So we're almost into the 50s. Both days left in our Miami Hurricanes top 100 plays countdown. I think today was play number 51. And I think our countdown ends like a day or two before kickoff. So, yeah, we're coming up close to the 40s here. So, yeah.
Cam, I really hesitate telling you this, but I think it's for your own good. It's just to build you up, to take the constructive criticism. But while you were gone, people were relishing, we're good without Cam. We can do much better without him. Hopefully you won't have him back. Now, come on. You know better than that. You can imagine what the comments were while you were gone. It was like, again, another week? What's going on? Get him back. The outcry was outrageous.
Yeah, I appreciate it, but just like with anything, sometimes you got to take breaks and whatnot. So I did finally unveil where the #redacted place was. So I went to Amsterdam, the Netherlands, for a week, just on a vacation, and I've been trying, or I want to travel more. And that was the first place that I wanted to go. I have a couple friends who had been there, and they gave me a couple tips and tricks. And so I went there and enjoyed myself greatly. I'm still taking in a Heineken right now because I have those anyway. But yeah, I did the tour and everything. So just had a really, really great time. And it was good to get away just from everything and just everything. Just go have a new experience. So I appreciate the fact that you guys missed me and everything. But back here for this week. Might be gone next week. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But it's the summertime, so a little bit of hit and miss right now. But, I'm here more often than not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe that's a good thing also for some of you to realize. They say that the saying goes is absence makes the heart grow fonder. Maybe there's a little bit more appreciation there for what Cam brings each and every week talking Miami football with us. Certainly, we attempted to fill the void while you were gone, and
I'm sure you did.
Hit or miss, but we did our best, and we carried through. But there's been much on the scene over the last week in regards to recruiting.
Yes.
Mostly good news, a little bad news, some defections, but at the same time, not defections, but guys that had committed, but mostly positive stuff for Manny Diaz's program.
Yeah, so we'll start with the decommitment, and that was 4-star defensive end Samuel Anele, who's transferred many, many times in high school. I believe the place he's going to play now is called McDougal Technical Institute. I think they're based out of Hollywood, Florida, but I'm not really sure. I think that's like one of those kind of storefront schools, like like in a shopping plaza, and they just have like a bank of computers and things. And there's plenty of them around. I mean, there's Dolphin Park. There's there's other places that are like that are schools. So I think that's where he's going to go and everything. So he, for those of you who've been watching for a while, probably for like 6 weeks, I was kind of like, there's a guy who's committed who's probably not going to stay committed that long. That was Samuel Anele that I was talking about, but didn't want to put the name out there. And he's only visited Miami like one time in the last 14 weeks. One time in the last like 6 months, I want to say. So that was for Paradise Camp, but he had not been on the scene much before that. And one of the recruiting rules that I wrote in that feature last year, that's still up on the front page of stateoftheu.com, is follow the visits, because visits show intent. Especially, I mean, if you're a local guy, you should be there more often than not. You have those guys like a DJ Ivy, who was like his senior year in high school. Every Sunday he went to practice. When Miami had their walkthrough after the games. I mean, every single Sunday he was there. Versus Samuel Anele, who went to Carroll City, last year, which is around the corner on 183rd from the stadium, which is on Hard Rock Stadium, which is on 199th. So you can tell and it's only one mile west off of 27th. So the proximity to the stadium is very close, but you didn't make it to any games as an unofficial visitor. You didn't make it anywhere else. You know what I mean? So he's the guy who defected, decommitted, and he's probably going to, take his talents elsewhere. And that's, he's a 4-star kid. He's well built. He's 6'4", 247 pounds. And like, dude, he's jacked. So yeah, I mean, that is a guy who decommitted. And we wish him all the best in his future endeavors. But, Miami is making moves to replace and upgrade even at that position with a 4-star guy decommitting. So several guys committed around the time that I was gone, even at Paradise Camp and things like that. So I don't know if we had a piece up on the website for everybody, but I know that we were tweeting about it. If it fit in my schedule when I was, abroad and it just happened to time up, I would hop on a little bit, but got somebody else from the website also running the State of the U account sometimes as well, even when I am here full time. But anyways, let's just run down the commits recently. Number 1, Michael Redding III from IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. He's originally from the Panhandle area of Florida. A 4-star wide receiver, top 200 kid in the class overall, 6'1", 195. And his ranking dropped literally hours after he committed to Miami, which is nonsense because like nobody's rankings are moving right now because everybody's in evaluation mode. But that's just kind of emblematic of the Miami bias that like the recruiting industry has, that even a 4-star guy of Redding's caliber had his ranking dropped like instantaneously after committing to Miami and whatever. Anyways, he's a top tier talent. So he's a really, really good player. He's committed. And he just went out at the opening and then he ran very fast. He jumped very high and he had like diving one-hand catches all over the place. So Redding III is the guy who just committed at wide receiver. So that's a big get. Additionally, Elijah Roberts is back committed to Miami, the defensive end from Miami Columbus, 6'3", 270-ish right now. So he might stay outside, but all likelihood is he's going to move inside like RJ McIntosh did, kind of, a bigger body defensive end in high school, moving inside to tackle in college. So he's a guy who committed just recently, on the 21st of June. So that was after the first the cookout of Paradise Camp weekend. So Paradise Camp had the cookout at Hard Rock Stadium, which was invite only on the 21st, and then the 22nd was the actual event. So he committed at the cookout thing. Romello Height also committed around that same time, but he just unveiled his commitment 2 days ago on July the 1st. He's a 3-star, 4-star kind of tweener kid. He's probably going to end up ranked a 4-star. He's rated as a 3-star outside linebacker right now because he's 6'5", 218. But he's been recruited to Miami to play that defensive end or that Viper position, so that position that Trent Harris played. And he's gonna rush the passer. He's gonna be an edge rusher. So in that guys with that kind of prism on his abilities, he's a 4-star in the eyes of a lot of people. So another blue chip talent, Romello Height from Dublin, Georgia, he committed. Then also a little bit before that, Quentin Williams from Charlotte Mallard Creek High School, he committed as a defensive end at 6'3", 234. And he committed on the 26th. So he was down around Paradise Camp as well. He put on a show there, waited a couple days, and then committed. And the funny thing, or the good thing with Williams is his father is a Miami Hurricanes fan. So he grew up watching the Canes and things like that. So yeah, like his dad was really heavily on wanting Quentin to come to Miami, but obviously let the kid go through his whole entire process, unbidden, but they came to the decision that, he wanted to be here and be a Hurricane. So he committed as well. So that's pretty good. And then the last one is Chris Washington, a offensive lineman from Nashville, Tennessee. He committed at Paradise Camp because he came down. He was committed to like Ole Miss or one of those SEC schools, Kentucky, something like that. And he came down for Paradise Camp and worked out with Butch Berry, the offensive line coach, and everything was around. It just did really well. Got an offer shortly before Paradise Camp, and then he committed. So he's a big kid at 6'7", 270, and he's a true tackle. So he's going to come in and play that role. And there's people who think that he's a 3-star right now, but he's probably going to see his ranking rise because he has that kind of skill set and also the physical build to support having a higher ranking. So those are all of the guys who committed recently, both when I was away and then back. So yeah, Miami is adding guys to the class, and there's probably going to be a couple more commitments in the near future. I think Tyreek Austin Cave, linebacker from Camden, New Jersey, is supposed to commit tomorrow on the 4th of July, and everybody believes that he's going to come to Miami. And there might even be another couple guys on top of that. So, yeah, Miami is really pushing the momentum and their advantage right now on the trail. And Manny Diaz has proven that he's not afraid to, like, upgrade at a position. I mean, even with Samuel Anele, who's a 4-star guy, like, look, you know, if it's not working out and you're not want to be here, then you can go elsewhere, and then we can find somebody or a couple of guys, Elijah Roberts, Romello Height, to fill that slot and, you know, do the job well. So, yeah, Miami's, you know, obviously, you know, losing a player of Anele's caliber in general is not good, not great, but when he wasn't really that connected to the program, it's not that big of a loss. And then when you add all these other guys with, you know, size and skill and talent, that's a good thing.
DeAndre, our man, DeAndre Crawford, Clemson fan, watching Miami football because he just loves college football. Clemson guy, contributing to the super chat. So we thank you so much for your contribution, DeAndre. He's here for us time and time again as we do these live shows, and he always shows his appreciation. So just want to let you know, if you find value here, specifically when Cam's on the line with us to talk college football and talk Miami, then we just ask that you respond accordingly. Just in the last week, I've been asked, why don't you do LSU live shows every week? Why don't you do Michigan shows live every week? Why don't you do a weekly Clemson? And who else asked? Florida and a few other ones. Well, if you contribute and we get to a certain point, then we will do all that. See stuff like this. I am doing my best to upgrade. Like we're going to go with the, you know, better mics and, you know, all this stuff we're working on. So we will continue to work, and please don't call because it's not a call-in show. You can call me some other time, but Cam's going to break it down right here. And I was just doing kind of some rough math. If we're in the 51-day range, that means we're in the 7-week range. So I guess we will pick another position this week. I don't see many questions. A lot of banter in the chat, but not many questions outside of why do they call it Paradise Camp? That's the only one I could find.
Okay, so I'll touch on that, and then I want to touch on one other recruiting thing before we get into the position. It's called Paradise Camp because Mark Richt called it that, because he said he was coming home to South Florida, and this is paradise, and why don't you want to work and live and play football in paradise and everything. So it was just a front to back, top to bottom branding kind of a thing. He always said that. If you remember his media tour when he got hired and everything, even at that bowl game when he watched the game but didn't coach, you know, and everything. He said it from then, Mark Richt, that is. So, yeah, that was just a complete branding idea. And, you know, it was, you know, you want to have an event that is fully branded like that. You know, he started Dog Night at Georgia, DAWG, you know what I mean? Florida has Friday Night Lights. Florida State has Saturday Night Live. Ohio State has something, Michigan has something, Texas, you know, like every big school has like a big themed event as such. And that was Mark Richt's idea for branding, was to call it Paradise Camp. And it's, you know, it's stuck, and Miami keeps getting top end guys, not only in the current recruiting year, but in the future recruiting years to come on down for those events. And not just the local guys, like, you know, regional and national recruits also. So that's a good thing, and that's why that happened. I also wanted to touch on the recruiting front on another move that just happened yesterday. Hold on. Excuse me. That is impactful for Miami potentially, in that 4-star offensive tackle Isaiah Walker Jr. decommitted from South Carolina. And that was a thing that had been coming for a long time. I know that he had said when asked by a South Carolina blogger if he was going to decommit, he obviously told that blogger no. But I mean, that had been in the works for a long time. And it was pretty well known in the recruiting world that Isaiah Walker Jr. was not going to probably end up at South Carolina. So he waited until the opening and dropped his iOS press release for his decommitment yesterday. He said in an interview with my former colleague, Stephen Adams at Canes Insight, who was at the opening, he said that, you know, he did not tell South Carolina that, but, you know, when you have people close to the recruitment and pretty much everybody knew that, you know, it's a thing that they probably should have known. And the South Carolina coaches were texting him because they found out when everybody else found out. And he said, oh, yeah, they were like, call us, Muschamp, the head coach and the offensive line coach. Hey, call me. And he was like, I didn't call him. Like, I didn't need to. Like, I was going to decommit, and I had my mind made up about that for a while. So when the player himself says that he had his mind made up for a while, that validates, the sources that everybody has who are telling, them that kind of a thing. Now, moving forward, I believe this is going to be a Florida and Miami battle. On the recruiting trail. I don't think Isaiah Walker Jr. is simply just not going to go to South Carolina. I'm sorry to inform Gamecock fans of that, but he's not, and he never was. I saw a couple, recruiting journalists saying that it was going to be a big 3 battle with Miami, Florida, and Florida State. I don't see any conceivable way on God's green earth that he's going to go to Florida State. I just don't. They're not recruiting on that level, on the offensive line, I should say. And I just don't think it's feasible. So it's really going to come down to Miami and Florida. And, hopefully Manny Diaz has a different playbook, because the offensive line battles that were Miami versus Florida last year invariably all went to Florida. And, when you add in a tight end in Keon Zipper and a defensive end in Summerall, and I think there was a defensive back early in the cycle who flipped over there as well. So yeah, those direct head-to-head battles have not been, at least in the last cycle, not been good for Miami versus Florida. So obviously there's work to be done for any school that's going to get Isaiah Walker Jr. We've talked about him many times here, but he is officially decommitted and on, just ready to go through his recruitment. So, he spoke highly of Miami and Butch Berry, how he went down for an unofficial visit, not for Paradise Camp the week before, and then was able to get one-on-one coaching by Butch Berry. And Butch Berry was an assistant offensive line coach in the NFL for 5 years. So obviously for a player like Isaiah Walker Jr., who wants to get to the NFL, working with somebody of that caliber is an impressive kind of a thing. So he did mention Butch Berry by name. So I know that Miami is in a good place, not necessarily in the best place, not saying he's going to commit and sign tomorrow, but there is work to be done. But Miami is definitely in the game with Isaiah Walker Jr., and he is now a free agent, as it were, in the recruiting world.
We have 113 on the line. Miami Hurricanes live here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, 8 o'clock every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time with we've had a number of Miami contributors, but of course, front and center is our guy, Cam Underwood from State of the U. We've had on, we had John Michaels on and Kevin Fielder last week.
Nice.
John and Alonzo came on, and they had a friendly battle. I don't remember what they were arguing about, but it was quite the scene, as you can imagine, getting those two riled up. I had to basically just shout and shove them off the air at the end because they would have gone on for hours.
Oh, yeah.
It was a sight to behold. All right. Want to let everyone know that you can help support the channel by grabbing the Amazon link in the description section below. Just do your regular Amazon shopping. Grab that link. Why not? It's the same shopping experience, but you can help out the channel by doing that. Also, the super chat is on. I'm not going to say anything else in regards to why you should use it, but Cam takes his time out each and every week to supply us with Miami football knowledge right here. Also, the audio versions are out there on all the major platforms. Just search Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. All right, NBA fan. I'm trying to do the equations in my head while I decipher this question. So his question is, considering that Miami's average ranking per recruit is 0.886, which equates to roughly around the 400th best player in the country, how can you honestly make the assertion that Miami is back? Now, I've got my answer to this question, but I will send it over to the Miami expert and the recruiting expert first.
That's fine. First of all, I believe that several of the commitments are underrated for various reasons. Whether it's size, whether it's visibility, whether it's, just a forthcoming rankings bump, whether they just got a rankings drop because of a previous injury or things like that. So there is some of that going on. Miami does have many. And I mean, even like a Michael Redding, like I said, he's a high 4-star guy. And within hours of committing to Miami, his ranking dropped when no rankings are moving right now. You know what I mean? Like, so there is a little bit of that. And one of our contributors, Candace McLean, I believe it was, just wrote about the fact of Miami recruits and players talking about how the rankings have been depressed for Miami recruits historically and currently. So there is a measure of that as well. I do think that this staff is going with their own evaluations and saying rankings be damned. Like a guy, Xavier Restrepo, who is committed. He is not going to be anybody's super highly rated guy. He's 5'10", 185 pounds. You know, he's quick. He has strong hands. He can make plays, you know, as a receiver and in as a running back or in a return game. But I mean, if I'm listing the, you know, all of the recruits in this class, it's going to be a while till I get to Xavier Restrepo. But can he have a role given the, you know, 6 or 7 things to do on the field? Absolutely. So you have to fit player to scheme. Additionally, I think that, I mean, the top end talent is amazing. Michael Redding Jr., Tyler Van Dyke, Don Chaney Jr., who should be a 5-star because he was making everybody miss and making every single play possible at the opening. So the highs are very high. I think some of the middle and low part are maybe a little bit underrated. And additionally, on top of that, Miami's not back until Miami's winning championships. Miami has, and I already did the numbers, Miami has the blue chip ratio over 50%, i.e. half of their roster are blue chip recruits coming in to this season, which is a prerequisite for being a championship contender as set forth by my SB Nation colleague, Bud Elliott. And you can go read all those blue chip ratio pieces. So Miami does have the talent to compete for championships. Now, there's obviously much to be seen from the offense and the quarterback position, the offensive line and things like that. But until Miami is consistently, or at least once, challenging for a championship or contending for a championship, and not fool's gold like 2017, where in the midst of that season we were saying, hey, all that glitters is not gold, and we should probably maybe pump the brakes on this even at 10-0. Until you do that in a real way, like with a team that has it, you know, like a media or like a mid-tier or higher unit on all 3 phases, offense, defense, and special teams. Until you have that and you get there and you play those games and you beat a Clemson in the ACC championship game or something like that, you win a Rose Bowl or a Orange Bowl, and you spin that to the next season where you really have a top performance, then Miami is not back. And I have not said that Miami is back. So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's something that you're projecting. Maybe that's something that you hear from other people who are using that from the past to deride Miami. But until Miami plays for, at a minimum plays for, I mean, and it really should be wins a championship, Miami's not back. So Miami continues to push towards being back, continues to add depth and talent to the roster. But I've not said that Miami is back. I don't think that anybody on here with Marcus said that Miami is back. I know that nobody on our website has said that Miami is back. I cannot think of a single Miami fan that I know or have spoken to or interacted with on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, MySpace, Uvu, whatever you want to call it. I cannot think of a single person who is a Miami fan who's actually said that Miami is back, because we know that Miami is not. So to say, okay, if you're equating to the 400th best recruit is the average for this class, first of all, I push back on that for the reasons that I said. Second of all, I have not said that based upon the recruits that Miami is back. Therefore, the question lacks the necessary foundation for me to really address it, because I'm not saying that because I don't believe that, because Miami's not back until Miami wins.
So my first question, Cam, would be, I just want to make a clarification here. Is there a definite standard for you to say somebody's a blue chipper? Or is that just kind of a vague term, somebody's a blue chipper, or is there a rating standard for that?
The standard for being a blue chipper is a 4-star or a 5-star recruit. Now, where this gets nebulous is there are multiple ratings different recruiting outlets. So you have Scout. Well, Scout.com just got absorbed into 247 last year, so they're not by themselves. But it was Scout, Rivals, ESPN, 247. Maybe you have a different thing. Oh my God, what? I'll have to call him later, whatever. No, I know why he's calling me, but I can't take that right now. But yeah, so you have multiple different outlets that you can lean on, and they do their own proprietary rankings. So, you know, Romello Height is a 4-star on Rivals, but a 4-star D-end on Rivals, but a 3-star outside linebacker on 247. So which do you go with? Me, myself, personally, I go with the 247 composite. Now, I don't know what the composite algorithm is, like what percentage of all of the different ratings they use, but I know that the 247 composite takes into account all the different ratings systems. puts it together. I don't know if it's a 2-to-1, 247 to everybody else. I don't know what the ratio or the algorithm is, but they put them all together and then they come up with the composite ranking. But it does use all of the different services that are out there into the formula. So that's the one that I use, and I don't jump around. So I always reference that one because now since that's the thing that I've used as my point of comparison since 2013. Now we're talking about 6 years of consistency of, okay, we're talking about the composite. I've not jumped around and said, okay, this player, I'm going to say ESPN because they're higher, or this word. No, I use the one that's the baseline. But the baseline for being a blue chip recruit is you are a 4-star or a 5-star rated player. And you can look into the numbers. I forget what the actual cutoff is for a 4-star on the 0.89 or 890 or whatever it is. But yeah, so that's it. So if you're a blue chip, then you're a 4-star or a 5-star recruit. And like I said, I use the 247 Sports Composite, which takes a little bit from everybody and puts it together and comes up with it.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is your Miami football hour each and every week right here. And you know that in addition to this, I pump out tons of Miami content all over the place, in addition to what we get here from Cam. And also, I chop this up into segments. So if you join our Miami channel, you can specifically say, I want Cam's take on recruiting. I want Cam's take on the offensive tackle position, whatever, because we edit those down to 5 and 7 minute segments over there. So you can help support the channel. The Amazon link is in the description section below. So just to clarify something that you said about the bias against Miami's recruiting status right now, I want to make sure I understand this. So when I see a recruiting ranking next to Wisconsin or Michigan State, I trust the program and the coach there because those teams are consistently 40th, 35th, but Mark D'Antonio is churning out top 10 teams for 6 or 7 straight years. It's just he's got a great program, and they've fallen off a little bit in the last 3 years, but you know, Wisconsin's done that for years where they're not wowing anybody in the recruiting numbers, but they've got a top 10 or 15 team every year. On the other side, we've seen USC in the top 10 or 15, and they've fallen off. And Texas, until just recently, had a bad run despite great recruiting classes. So do you think this is a intentional bias against Miami, or just this particular class and ranking of athlete isn't what you think it should be for whatever reason?
No, it's intentional and it's systematic. It's been over it for years. You know, we've talked about the South Florida 3-star would be, you know, 5-star elsewhere, or, you know, like comparative players, you know, who are, you know, 3 stars from South Florida or Miami or Fort Lauderdale, excuse me, just because you can't have all 4 stars from down here, even though those guys do go on to have success because of numbers and ratings. You can't have all these top tier recruits in South Florida, but, you know, it'll skew the numbers for the states versus, you know, kind of other things. So, yeah, I think that there's that. And it's been seen, like I've seen it too many times. I mean, like once is an accident, twice is a trend, 3 times is evidence, but we're in the hundreds of times that this has happened with guys who have committed to Miami. I mean, whether it is now with Michael Redding, it being, you know, 6 hours from when he committed to when his ranking dropped, because I was actually here at my house when he committed. Now, and the funny thing with Michael Redding that I did not talk about before, he checked in at the opening. Like at the, you know, they go in, they check in, there's like a media scrum and everything, blah, blah, blah. And he was asked directly, he said, hey, how's your recruiting going? He said, I don't know. I'm conflicted. It's probably going to go for a while. I don't know what I'm going to do. He called Miami or spoke to Taylor Stubblefield and Manny Diaz, the wide receivers coach and the head coach, and committed to Miami 30 minutes later after he had told people in public with other people around that he was not going to commit anywhere. So that was crazy that I was there for that. And then, yeah, I wrote the piece, the Welcome to the U piece right then at that time. I had the rankings in there because I went to the website and I saw that. And then not 6 hours later, I go back and people are putting up screenshots of how his ranking dropped when like nobody's doing anything and no rankings are being altered. So, I mean, that's just one thing. And that is kind of one of the more egregious instances thereof. But I mean, whether it's, you know, a little drop in a week and a little bit of more drop in a month and a little bit more, you know, later. But I mean, we've seen this far too many times from far too many guys that have committed to Miami for it to be by happenstance. I don't believe that to be true. And the converse is true also, because if you commit to Alabama, you're going to get a 4-star, period. I mean, T.L. Jones-Bell, very good wide receiver from Miami Carroll City. He was a 3-star for everybody. Now, I mean, I've seen T.L. Jones-Bell play. I taught his younger brother, matter of fact, this past year, and then he told me, he goes, no, my brother's going to go to Alabama. I said, okay, I don't need to, worry about it anymore. But many people down here said, yo, that kid is a 4-star. That kid should be ranked way higher. Miami was trying to push for him at a time, whatever. Nah, he's a 3-star. Nothing's going to happen. He commits to Alabama. What happens? 4-star, a week or 2 weeks later. Like, it happens. And I mean, it does happen in Miami's favor. Zion Nelson was a 2-star recruit committed to Appalachian State, the left tackle, who's a true freshman battling to be the starting left tackle. He commits to Miami. All of a sudden, he's a 3-star. Florida State just got an unranked tight end to commit, who was, I mean, completely off of everybody's radar. Like, I mean, I don't see how he's a take at Florida State, honestly. But hey, if they want to do it, go right ahead. But I mean, they bumped him up to a mid-tier 3-star, sight unseen. And like, I know the writer who did it, and everything. He said, yeah, I'm not going to let an unranked kid be committed to Florida State. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to talk to everybody and I'm going to alter the rankings. So like, to bump a kid to like a 3-star, that's one thing. But I mean, yeah, but you're also bumping great kids who are committed to Miami down 3 stars. And that doesn't make any kind of sense. And I mean, like I said, this is not just this year. This is not just this player. This is not just this time. We've seen it time and time and time again. And I know people are sick of me talking about it, sick of me tweeting about it. And I mean, just because there's so many people, and we'll see it and we'll screenshot it and just put it up there and be like, yo, you see this. It happens far too often for it to be by happenstance. That's all I can say. There's way too much evidence to the contrary.
So I can understand it to a certain degree. Sometimes you'll hear there's some amazing player in Rhode Island, and he by far is the best player in that state, and he's difficult to evaluate, but he's a 4-star. And if you know anything about the level of high school football in some states like a Rhode Island, that's just unheard of. There's a 4-star every 5 years or whatever it is. But they might be difficult to evaluate. Now, if the kid's a quarterback and he can just sling it, a scout can go out and see his arm, even though he doesn't get to play against like competition. But if the kid's an offensive tackle, wow, the scouting must be really good to come to that determination. So what you're telling me is, let's say we're watching a Major League Football. Okay, we're watching the future Michael Irvin versus Deion Sanders on a football field. And obviously, every play, somebody's going to win that battle. Even though we're looking at 2 of the greatest players in the history of their positions, somebody's going to win that battle. So if you're not a scout, you might say, if Deion Sanders wins that battle 8 out of 10 times, this Irvin guy's not really that good. But if you're a scout, you should be able to tell he's playing maybe the best cornerback I've ever seen.
Right.
So you're saying basically that there's an intentional bias against places like Florida, California, Texas to try to even it out, or just there's so much talent down there that some guys just look marginal because they're playing such good talent in opposition.
It's a little bit of both, and I think that these are separate issues. I think that the rankings the native rankings, like, without respect to any school, you know what I mean? Just like, we're going to rank players. I think that there is that going on where, like, there is the local depression of rankings because of the balancing. But then there is also, so that's like the baseline of where you start. And then there's leveling to that when the kids are committed. If you're committed to Georgia, if you're committed to Clemson, if you're committed to Alabama, you're going to get a 4-star. And it's going to be a very rare occasion that you don't. Josh Jacobs being one of the very super rare situations of a guy who committed to Alabama who was not a 4-star commit at a skill position, and a guy who ended up playing early and doing very well. So yeah, there's 2 different kind of parts to it. So yeah, I do think that there is some of that depression. And like, yeah, I mean, dude, I've seen some really, really, really good players down here in South Florida. And sometimes they do get overlooked, I mean, which is unfortunate, but you see, they were in the same or at a similar time. So you see Stedman Bailey going against Patrick Johnson, now Peterson, in high school. And Stedman Bailey was like a year younger, I want to say, than Pat was. But like, that's the one where you could look and you just say, okay, no, those are both 4-star, 5-star guys. Those are both elite guys. Like when I saw Calvin Ridley and Sean Burgess-Becker at Monarch years ago against Miramar, when Miramar had, who was it, Brian Edwards or somebody else, Tyreek Cole, who ended up going to West Virginia as a 4-star recruit. But he's checking Calvin Ridley, who was a year younger. I'm like, yo, that's another All-American battle, like on both sides. So you can see when the competition is to that level. But yeah, I mean, recruiting is an inexact science, and people look for different things and everything. So yeah, you should be able to tell if a guy just is different. Like when I saw both Bosa's at St. Thomas Aquinas and Jelani Hamilton when he was at St. Thomas Aquinas, those dudes were just different. They're 6'5", 265 with 8% body fat in high school, like just, bull rushing, and they have moves and spins and rips and all kinds of different things. I mean, yeah, those dudes are just different, but you can usually see those. So yeah, I do think, I mean, because your mid-tier guys, your mid-tier recruits, your second level, we'll call them, of recruits. So not your Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Tyreek Cole, Tracy Howards, the All-Americans, from anywhere. But like the step down from those guys are really, really good. And those are going to go to P5 schools and they're going to play, and whether that's down here, whether that's in Houston, whether that's in Dallas, whether that's in Los Angeles, whether that's in Atlanta or, the general area. But everybody cannot be ranked as highly as the guys I named before. So yeah, you are going to have some of that. Now the third tier of guy, that like lower level P5 or that group of 5 guy who is probably really good and could play up eventually, maybe he needs to gain 20 pounds. It's going to take him 2 or 3 years. He won't be a day one player like a lot of those other guys I mentioned. Now their ranking gets depressed, but they're out here having 1,500-yard rushing seasons. You know what I mean? Sean Shivers from Chaminade Madonna, who's at he's at Auburn. He's a running back, but he's 5'8". He's thickly built. He's fast as all get out, but he's a 3-star recruit because he's 2 inches too short and whatnot. But I mean, if you give him a crease in high school now, I mean, if you see him on any play, crease it and he's gone. Now at Auburn, you know what I mean? An SEC school, top half of the SEC school, but he's a 3-star recruit. Why? Because he wasn't necessarily big enough, because whatever. And like, that's a guy right there whose ranking was depressed because of just the amount of talent around. Joystick McKenzie, who's a guy that I've mentioned on here often, who Miami should have recruited, did not. And then he went to Georgia and had that legendary career returning kicks and everything for Georgia. He's another guy who was a 3-star, but could have played anywhere in America. You know what I mean? So there are two sides to that kind of equation. There are the high school rankings natively, as in a kid uncommitted to any school and what the rankings are, and then the alterations that come when you commit to a certain school, because those certain schools, they just have that cachet of getting good players. So you're going to get that bump and say, okay, well, we're not going to bring in a non-blue chip guy or only like 1 or 2 a year. So we're going to boost your recruiting stars, your ranking, because you're going to Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Texas, Georgia, Southern Cal, or something similar.
Yeah, I was just curious to check out the number of 3-stars from the top classes from last year. Alabama with the number 1 class had 1, Georgia had 4, Texas 9, Texas A&M 11, LSU 10, Oklahoma 8, Oregon 14, Michigan 10, Florida 8. See where Miami.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be out there. I mean, and 3-stars, everybody wants to like look down on them, but those are good players. And again, maybe those are a guy who doesn't play day one, but really, takes a red shirt, has a rotation role as a redshirt freshman, and then year 3 as a redshirt sophomore, he steps into a starting role. Whereas your 5-star, like a Jerry Jeudy, comes in day 1 and is the number 1 receiver for Alabama. That's like the kind of line of demarcation, of the difference between like your 5-stars and your 3-stars, because the 3-stars are going to be good players. 3-stars are going to be the foundation, or, not necessarily the foundation, but they're going to be a big part of any roster in football. But yeah.
Eli, thank you so much for the contribution here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our Miami Hour with Cam Underwood from State of the U. JT Sounds is asking about Chance Williams.
Oh, yeah. That's one I forgot. Thank you for asking. So, mentioned him before. Jalen Rivers from Oakleaf High School is the offensive tackle, and his best friend, god brother, I believe, is Chance Williams, who's the defensive end. Now, at a lot of schools, you'll see that they have like awesome players that play complementary positions. When I worked at Miramar, it was Tracy Howard at corner and Malcolm Lewis at wide receiver. There's been all kinds of other pairings such as this other places. So that's just one that I know because I worked there at the time and I saw them every single day. But similarly with Jalen Rivers and Chance Williams. Now, Chance Williams was at the beginning of this recruiting cycle, Williams and Rivers said that they were in a package deal. They openly said that they were going to go to the same school. Then they had a differing opinion on paradigm of what they wanted in a school, especially in terms of schemes on both sides of the ball. So then they separated and said, we're going to go our own ways. We're going to do what we need to do for ourselves. So Jalen Rivers committed to Miami because he wanted to be at Miami. All signs pointed to Chance Williams going to Florida or Georgia because he could play that buck outside linebacker, you know, in a 3-4 defense, which is what he wanted to do and who he wanted to be at the next level. But, you know, there's differing reports that he was told no by those schools, by their slow playing and saying maybe we'll wait and see if we'll take you later on and things like that. But all throughout the night, Miami has stayed consistent in their communication with Chance Williams. And when he checked into the opening a few days ago, he made mention of that Miami is still in the thick of things, even though they were not in his released top three, which was LSU, Georgia, and Florida. But Miami is, in a good spot, and he's talking to the defensive line coach all the time, and Manny Diaz as well, blah, 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 blah. So in the recent past, of about the last week, all of the predictions for Chance Williams' commitment have flipped from other places to Miami 100%. So it seems to be that whatever was going on has led Chance Williams away from those other places and then to Miami, with his commitment coming on July the 20th, which was his father's birthday, but his father passed 2 years ago, God rest his soul. And that's an important day to him, obviously, for the memory of his father. So he's committing on July the 20th to his chosen destination, which again seems like it's going to be Miami. So spin that back to the very beginning of this chat today when I spoke of Samuel and LA decommitting. Now you're talking about Chance Williams, who is as big as, but faster than and stronger than Samuel in LA. He's going to probably commit to Miami as a 4-star defensive end, join that class. Then you add in Elijah Roberts, again, who's an end, who's probably going to move to tackle, and Romello Height, who's an outside linebacker, who's going to play Viper, which is a defensive end position. You know, you lose in LA, but you get those 3 guys, that's pretty good recruiting. You know what I mean? Especially when there's a realistic chance that all 3 of those guys, Elijah Roberts, Romello Height, and Chance Williams, end up as blue chip rated recruits, even though Williams is already rated as such. So you're basically trading 1 4-star defensive end for the potential of 3 in the very near future. I'm taking that trade any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Thanks.
Our guy, Anthony Manzano, joins the chat each and every week. Anthony, we always appreciate your comments. Mark, can you please ask him if he has any updates on Tyler Van Dyke at the opening and if Miami is the favorite for Darnell Washington at tight end?
Good questions, both. Tyler Van Dyke played well. He was not one of the top 11 rated quarterbacks at the Elite 11 competition. I think they had 20 or 22 quarterbacks there, so it wasn't only 11. But yeah, he showed his big arm. Obviously, he showed some really good accuracy throughout the event. He did have his misses, though. His footwork was not 100% as clean as some of the other guys. So there is still development to be done, even for a 4-star kid who's very good. So he did well. He showed well, but he was not one of the top as of right now. But he does still have one of the strongest arms in America. He has a great build at 6'4", 220-something pounds. And, you know, he's in a good place of his development. Again, he's not all the way at the top of this class, but he was not all the way at the bottom either. So he did have some very good highlight reel throws and things, but he did also miss a couple. Especially they had a mock pro day the one day where they went through a scripted workout of throws, and he missed the first 3 of them pretty badly. But then he settled in, and then they had just some local Joe Schmo receivers, not even the the guys from the opening, just like your local, mid to low tier varsity / JV guys from the Frisco, Texas area, and they were dropping balls all over the place. So that didn't look good for him, but he did himself well. And it also just proves that he still has room to grow. So he's not a finished product and everything. So, could his performance have been better? Yes. But does he still have the ability to improve in the future? Yes. Insofar as Darnell Washington, I'm never going to say. I think that Miami is firmly ensconced in a recruiting battle for him, but everybody in America wants a guy who's 6'8", 255 at tight end. Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, USC, obviously, Florida, Florida State, Miami, the who's who of college football are going to be recruiting Darnell Washington. So I think it's far too soon to say that Miami is the favorite, but he has visited already. Darnell Washington has been consistent in saying that he's going to take an official visit to Miami, to Coral Gables later in this cycle. So that is good to hear him continue to say that. But no, I'm not ready to say that Miami is the favorite, but we are engaged in that recruitment and will be so, moving forward.
This is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You know that if you lock it in right here, you get college football discussion, debate, and analysis like no other every day. So basically, I release videos just about somewhere at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, around noon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, usually one late night. And on Wednesday night, though, we go live from 7 to 10. And right now, it's Miami Football Talk with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So don't be selfish and hog all this good content yourself. Go out there, grab your family and friends, your social media acquaintances, let them know that we're right here each and every week. Dennis Wilson, thank you so much for the contribution, as well as JT Sounds. We've got a question coming in. This might be the last one of the night from 863 Kane. Rooster, Jalen Knighton, could he still be a take even with Chaney locked in?
Oh, Miami wants 2 running backs in this class, so we're not going to turn away a guy of Jalen Knighton's ability. And again, we've been looking forward to running backs in this class. Now, one of the other options, Henry Parrish from Miami Columbus, committed to Pittsburgh a while back, but he was pretty open about wanting Miami to really like push for him, and we did not, because we're pushing or trying to push for Knighton. But yeah, no, the paradigm in this class has always been for 2, especially since we did not bring one in last year's class, and the transfer that Miami got to cover for not getting a high school recruit in last year's class, Asa Martin, is not allegedly, he's reportedly in the transfer portal to transfer elsewhere, because you got a 5-star coming behind you, and then you got a 5-star in front of you, and then, a 4-star in Cam Harris, who's, pushing to be the starter. So you got all these 4 or 5-star guys around you, and where you're going to fit in. So, Miami did not bring in a running back in the 2019 recruiting or transfer classes. So, yeah, the thought was always to bring in 2. So Jalen Knighton is a guy who we would take, tomorrow if you wanted in. The bad thing about it is that he wants to go to Mark's favorite school, Ohio State, which does not bode well for Miami. Plus the fact Miami doesn't really, or has not done well recruiting top guys from Deerfield Beach High School, which is a place that I used to work. But, that's a footnote. But Xavier Restrepo goes to, or transferred to, Deerfield Beach, but he's not a Deerfield Beach kid. He's an Aquinas kid. Like, he was at Aquinas for 3 years before he transferred over. So that's what that is. Top end kids from Deerfield Beach. It has been a struggle to get them to go to Miami, and I think that it's going to continue because Jalen Knighton is going to go to Columbus, which sucks, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment. I had a lot of things going through my mind. I was going to be gracious, then I was going to be arrogant. I was going to be gracious. I was going to be arrogant. I'll be nothing.
Facts are facts. Regardless, in spite of us pushing, he wants to go there. And it's funny because everybody thought, or some people thought, or Florida State people thought, that Florida State was at the top of his recruitment, and then everybody else was behind. And then there was a thing that one of their journalists put up today that said, so Ohio State has vaulted to the top for Jalen Knighton, and everybody wants to say that Florida State's number 2, but you're in the right state, wrong school. The biggest threat to Ohio State for Jalen Knighton is Miami, not Florida State. They're not even on the radar, which is kind of bursting Florida State fans' bubbles, because they're like, no, he's going to come here. We got Jalen Knighton locked in, and it's not even close. And look, I get it. Like, we've been there. Miami, was in that same position with Matthew Thomas, the 5-star linebacker years ago. We're like, oh yeah, it's between us and, Florida State maybe. And he was like, no, he went to Florida State, and number 2 was USC, and number 3 was somebody else, and number 4 was Miami. And we're like, wait, what? So like, I get it. And I mean, it's funny to me because like, whatever, but yeah, Jalen Knighton, he's to get back to the original question, he's the guy that Miami would take at any time that he wanted in between now and the first game of 2020. Come on down.
184 on the line, and this is the standard each and every week where we have the most people on the line when we were wrapping up the show. So again, what you do is you rewind, you wait for it to post, you watch the whole video, and I know you can't take part in the live chat, but that just means this is consistent. We're not jumping all over the map in regards to our hit time every week. It's 8 o'clock Eastern time every Wednesday night with Cam Underwood from State of the U talking Miami. So it's 8 o'clock. Lock it in so you can get here right at the beginning. Cam, what you got going there at State of the U?
Still got a bunch of great stuff going on for you guys. Ranking the roster. We got our game preview, so we're like halfway through the season almost already. We got Friday film room. We got What If Wednesdays. Had a great couple of questions today. What if Butch Davis would not have left Miami after the 2000 season? And also, which was the best Miami Hurricanes team that did not win a national championship? So like 86, 88, 2000, 02. So we have all that. We got player profiles. We have Kane Sports recaps where we're looking at all the different sports, what they did in the 2018-19 academic year in their respective sports seasons. We're probably going to have some interviews and some other things as well coming up. I think I saw that in editorial. So a wide-ranging variety of content. Also, we're still doing the new contributors, Why I Became a Hurricane series. I know that was an SB Nation-wide push 2 years ago, but Marshall Thomas, one of our top producers, he wanted to bring that back so he could tell his story, and then the new crew could tell theirs as well. So we had John Michaels, who's a radio talent out of Atlanta, who's also been just started contributing for us. He told his story today. So there's all that and much, much more. The 100 plays, the 100 greatest plays countdown is still there. The recruiting rules is still there at the top. And then all kinds of different things. I think I wrote about the over-under for the Canes for this year on the front of the website. So that's up there as well. So yeah, just tons and tons and tons of great content. Always there, always free. So go on over to, if you're on Twitter, my personal account is at Underwood Sports. The website's account is at The State of the U, which myself and Marshall Thomas manage. On Facebook.com/The State of the U, and the website is stateoftheu.com. In any and all of those places, please come fan with us.
All right, Terp 305, we can ask your question next week. A lot of other questions coming down. And again, we've got the most people on the line wrapping up the show. Thank you so much for joining us for Miami Hurricanes Live. And of course, most of our thanks goes to Cam for taking the hour out of his week to provide the insight and the information. Cam.
Yeah, man. So it was a good time. Glad to be back. I'm glad to finally tell you guys where I went to vacation for a week and everything. And I'll catch you sometime, whether it's next week or the week after that or something, but I'll be around.
So rewind it, watch it again, watch it for the first time. Anything you missed, it's going to post very soon. Otherwise, Ohio State football talk at 9 o'clock right here in just a few seconds. Cam? Yes. You can stick around. Maybe it's going to be a college football playoff matchup this year. I get a 2-hour show that week.
I can. If that happens, then I will do the 2-hour show. Up and until then I respectfully decline.
But we know what's going to happen at some point this season, whenever it is. I think to move the game to November, Florida State, Miami. Maybe we'll combine all that. That'll be a whole lot of fun.
That will be. I mean, obviously, that's all hands on deck week because you know, we're trying to be all about moments, and that is the biggest moment. You know, obviously Miami and Florida State, but I mean Miami and Florida as well. You know, to kick off the season, so we're going to kind of do some of those same kind of things we do for a Florida State week. So if you've been around and seen our content for Florida State, which is wide ranging and varied, we're going to do some of those same things, obviously, for the season opener. So just stick around with us at stateoftheu.com. I gave you all the places to come do that. But if nothing else, stateoftheu.com is the website. Come and fan with us, and I'll see you guys later.
All right, Cam, everybody else, we will see you soon.
Peace.